look around the world, in most of the synagogues, not in Israel, but around the world, you will not see the Tanach in the shelf. They will see, you will have Chumash, you will have even the library, you have the whole Mefarshim. But to have this Tanach without any Mefarshim, just the 24 books, it's unique to Israel, and the reason, and the only reason, is the language. One of the, I should say, the sign of the redemption period that we live in the Zionist time, is the language that the Hebrew become a regular language, a live language. And because of that, we have the option to read the Tanakh again, alone, without, between us and the words of Hashem. We can try, listen carefully, what Hashem, what the prophets try to tell us. And it's true that the one biggest problems of learning Tanakh is the language. If you have problem with the Ivrit, so you may have chance to read one pasuk with translate, another pasuk, and then you become very tired. This is the truth. I see what's happened to me by reading English. I can listen, I can speak kacha kacha, but to read, if you are a text person, if you read a lot, so after a few lines you have no koach to continue. This is a sad, but it's true. So we need to understand, first of all, the problem of the language. So what we used to do over the years, it's a historical fact that we read pasuk and then translate it. It's called in the tradition Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum. Meaning you need to read twice the words of the Bible, and between once to understand what you read. So you read, you translate, and then reread to understand what you read the Hebrew words mean to say. It's bring the people be'emet to the point that they don't know Tanakh, just because of that. And I don't want to say that I against this shita. I just want to say that we have a different shitot of using the book that Hashem gave us, the books. And if we see after so many years that people around the world don't know what's written here, so mean that this shita didn't work. And the reason that I try to share with you a different shita is that I deeply feel that by learning Torah, we not just can be better Jews, but we listening carefully to the voice of the prophets, trying to bring the voice of Hashem, we will understand immediately that they talk with us in the present time. And in a minute I will give you one example at least. You should know that the problem of learning Torah in the language, it's not the Chutz La'aretz problem. Also the Hebrew speakers, Israelim, when they open the Tanakh, just kacha, happened so that I open in Iyov. Okay? Try to read one pasuk in Iyov. Okay? No one understands the word. It's Chinese to the Israelis.
To some of them.
To most of them. Most of them. I'm not first of all, for the majority in the regular schools. Also, you know, in the yeshivot, no one learned Torah. In the Zionist world, starting learning Torah because they understand that the secret is the relationship between the Zionut, the redemption, and what Hashem has asked us to do. It's here, just directly here. So the Zionut movement in Israel, the Dati Zioni, started 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to learn back to the Tanach. And I just came, you know, days before Tisha B'Av, we had a conference in Gush Etzion. I'm not joking, 5,000 people came for 4 days just to listen to Shiurei Tanach. Tanach, Kenes Tanach. This is a real revolution of the last generation.
No, but it was before, I'm sorry.
25 years ago. What's happened years ago, when Ben Gurion, when the Zionut movement started, it was returned back to the history.
became שר החינוך.
Okay, let's not argue about what the point when it started. So that it's not so important. The important is that the need of learning Torah is huge. And what I found is exactly what I try to share with you in the morning, that if you find the story, if you find the message, private message, the individual message, in the Torah, in the Nevi'im stories, in the whole Bible, then you have the interest to learn Tanakh. I will start with an example and then return back to the Shita, to the system. I am a teacher for almost 30 years, 28 years. Many years I tried to teach Jeremiah. It's, you know, one of the prophets, maybe Chashuv, one of the important prophets. And I teach it year after year to class 11 in high school. It was so hard. One chapter cannot link with the other. Each one of them is so beautiful. It's like a poem. הבן יכיר לי אפרים, קול ברמה נשמע, באמת beautiful words, maybe songs. But what the message? What's happened there? We have 52 chapters in Jeremiah book, and each one of them speak to himself. Sometimes just one paragraph in a chapter. And I couldn't bring the message not to myself, and of course if I didn't get it, so my student. They didn't care, you know, just tell us what will be the question in the exam. A few years ago, I had, I should say, a chutzpah. I realized that something happened accidentally happened to this book. I believe that Jeremiah wrote his, or said his prophets, his words, but he wasn't the editor. And maybe the editor was Baruch ben Neriah, you know, his servant. But I realized that the story missed there. You cannot share the biography of Jeremiah via his own book. And what I did a few years ago, like a puzzle, I cut the book to many, many pieces, many pieces, like 150 pieces. Every piece is a complete message from the Navi. I didn't miss even one word of Jeremiah. Of course, I didn't add any word. I just put it like a pieces of a puzzle. And then, I need to remind you how to make puzzles. But you remember that first of all we take the corners, and then we take the whole מסגרת.
Right.
בסדר? And then And then we complete the puzzle in the end. If it's many pieces, in the end we have a few that we don't know what to do and we just put it like that. Okay. So I took 150 pieces of Jeremiah book, but it's a real story. And I built them or rebuilt them again by the story of Jeremiah. He was a prophet for 45 years. Dramatic time to the Jewish people. The empire change, World War, unbelievable stories, and in the end, Churban, destruction of the first temple. And he was the one who tried to stop that. I will not go now inside the story of Jeremiah, but I built the story of a person. And every chapter that deal with his story, I put in the right paragraph. In the end, I had a new book. But the same words. So, I didn't know if to do it mamash kacha, Jeremiah the alternative. But in the end, I did the book. Now it's in Hebrew for a few years. Very soon after the Chagim, it will be published in English, Jeremiah. And this is the story of the prophets. And from that time that I did my work, I go over the country in Israel and teach Jeremiah. Never mind if it's youth, dati, non-dati, adults, elders. You can choose whatever you want. But I start first of all by taking an hour and bring the story of the person, the prophet. And then, usually, I take one chapter just to explain the dilemma that he had. The real dilemma. Meaning you take the text and put it in a context. And it's easily going. And then, the Talmidim, even primary school, of course youth and of course adults, they cannot stop. They try to learn more and more and more. And then they argue with me. You made wrong here, this chapter should be there. Excellent. We have machloket. But they learn Tanach. Jeremiah became one of the favorite books. It's happened so that last summer, Misrad HaChinuch, okay, they took this book, and put it in the regular program to the regular schools, not the Dati schools, to learn Yirmiyahu again, because no one touched it before. For me, it was a sign that the problem is not the book, but between us and the book. We need to find a way. I will give you another example for another book that I'm trying now to deal with. Yeshayahu, the prophet. Okay? So many words, poems, beautiful. When, where, what was his story? You understand what I try to say? Story is something that touches us, always. A private story, individual story. Yeshayahu, in the first pasuk in his book, Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amos, Asher Chaza Biennial. You want to complete the pasuk? Uzziah, Yotam, Achaz, Chizkiyahu, Malchei Yehuda. Okay, change the channel. Boring. Well, the names. But now stop and focus the name. Uzziah, Yotam, Achaz, Chizkiyahu, 4 kings, about 50 years, and each one of them completely different. Ben Gurion used to say that Uzziah was his model. Uzziah. Now, I will not take the whole half an hour to deal with this king Uzziah and to explain why Ben Gurion decided to put his figure as a role model for him. He thought about himself as Uzziah. I can prove it. Uzziah in the end was a terrible story, but he was a hero. The state, Judea in his time, was large like in Solomon's days. Now in the end, if you look in Chizkiah, the fourth king in Ishayahu days, was tragic. You remember the Sancheriv war that came to Yerushalayim. We remember the words of Ishayahu, Od hayom benov la'amod yenofef yado arba Tzion. It was just close like that the Churban will be in his days, in Chizkiyahu days. When Ishayahu said his words, he started as a young Navi with Uzziah days, when Yehuda, Judea, was like an empire. He ended his career after 50 years when Judea was close to Churban. And if you listen carefully to the words of Yeshayahu chapter 8, okay, Artzechem, we said it, the Haftarah, you know, the terrible to say that. But if you don't understand the language, so your heart is very close to the words of the Navi. Shabbat before Tisha B'Av, when we say the words, Artzechem shmama, Arechem srufot esh, ונותרה בציון כסוכה בכרם, מלונה במקשה, עיר נצורה. Beautiful words, terrible, tragic. What he said, Isaiah. He said that our land is empty. Our towns fired. And Jerusalem, Bat Zion, Notra Bat Zion, she still survived, Kesukah Bakerem, alone. Now, it's just a poem, or Yeshayahu deal with reality. If we learn the words of Sancheriv from Assur, we know the answer. He did that. Year 701 BC. It's happened. We know exactly the date. We know exactly the time. We know where the empire came to Eretz Israel and how they destroyed the whole way between Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, go further, road number 35. We know that we can move, we can walk there. And then you understand the words of the Navi concrete. This is just one chapter. If we jump to another chapter, Mashal HaKerem, Kerem היה לידידי בקרן בן שמן, ויקב לעשות ענבים ויעש באושים. But when and where Yeshayahu said this chapter, you should listen carefully to his voice and put it in the concrete time of his biography. And then the story becomes something completely different, because it's a man who talk with you. If I want to be a bit more chutzpahdik, I will say that the prophet is like a journalist, but a superb journalist, who writes columns, articles, to show the people the dangerous, the potential, the challenges, to stop them, to argue with, especially with the kingdom, should be very strong, these journalists. Sometimes you have two newspapers. In Israel we have quite more than two. Now, two journalists sit in the same situation, same place, same period, and write articles about the thoughts, black and white, right and left. Who is right? Who is Navi Emet? You know, the Torah answered this question by saying, let's stay. We'll see. When it's happened, we'll know who is right and who is wrong. But when you are in a situation that you need to make now a decision in the kingdom, in the government, to open a war against Iran or not. One journalist say you must, one say Mishigas, and don't do that. It's the question of prophets. It's politician. No. If you learn carefully, Jeremiah, Shayahu, Amos, all the prophets, they deal with questions of war, of peace, diplomatic. The Nevuah is not about Avodat Hashem. The Nevuah, the prophets always deal about society, about social justice, about what can happen to a society without keeping the values inside the society. If you share the steps of Jeremiah, going inside the temple, the yard of the temple, his first time when he went inside, very young, and he saw the people, massive numbers, bring sacrifices, Chagim, holiday, many, many, many. And he said, do you think that you can live in double life like that? You will do your terrible thing outside, stealing, murder, all the terrible uncertainty and then you come and say we are in a holy place and Hashem will save us? Do you think that this is the way of Avodat Hashem? Open Yechezkel. When he, 10 years before Churban HaBayit, when he stood and listened carefully to the voices of the people who live in Eretz Israel. I'm talking about 600 BC. 600, just about 14 years before the destruction. Yechezkel listened carefully and he heard voices said, Hashem gave Eretz Israel to Am Israel and he will take her. Never mind, we'll be here forever. We have insurance. Hashem gave us this insurance. In Yechezkel chapter 37, argue with them. Who gave you this insurance without paying the tax? Do you think that Eretz Israel given to the people, to the Jewish people, without doing the right things? What is the right thing? Social justice. Always return to that. Tzedakah mishpat. Justice and charity. This is the only way that the prophets deal with the people. They didn't care about if you are tzaddik by urine tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. That wasn't the subject of the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im were the people who work in the society, but without understand the situation, without understand the politician in the period of the Nevi'im, we will never understand them. So the first part, now I'm going back to the shita, to the system. The first part is to build the story. Without even opening the book, we, the teachers, need to read and read and read to know what is the story. But first of all, when we are standing in the class, the first week, the first month, we should build a story without reading even one pasuk. Even one pasuk. Just build the figure. Understand who is Eliyahu, who is Elisha, What was the situation between Israel and Syria and Jordan? Massive. It was independent days. It was the slave days. Who was the hero? Who is the weak? Try to put it like a newspaper. I don't want to say the sports action, but interesting. A real story, not story that happened maybe in Gan Eden. We are not talking about fantasy. We are not talking about, just agadot, legenda. We are talking about a real story that happened to us years ago. When the story will complete, then the kids, of all ages, as I promised you, push you to open the book. Show us. They will ask. They will willing you. Show us, prove us that what you say that's written here. And then you give them one paragraph, just one paragraph. The whole year, they teach you that. Your whole year will change. I want to promise you, the students will run after you. You cannot promise, you cannot believe me. The boring class of Tanach will be exciting like a drama, because the Tanach is a drama. And we missed it. And by missing that, we missed our connected to our history. And by that, we missed more than that. Few minutes to the basic. I don't know how many teachers in kindergarten we have here. Not too many. I prefer to have the whole, hands, because you know that this is the most important thing. How you put the figures of the Tanakh in the eyes or in the hearts of the kids in the kindergarten time. You cannot fix the mistakes that we do in these ages. The Mishnah said, "Halomed yeled, lema hu domeh? Lediyo hakatuv al niyar chalak." You take a clean, clear page and write. We all know, we used to know that before the days of the computer, that you start again, new page, daf chalak. To teach kids, it's like that. After that, you need to fix, and it's never be the same. To take kids Fridays with shiur, sipur, parashat shavua, it's exactly the same. You should know the responsibility that you have, that when you tell them something about Abraham, it will be in their eyes forever. About Sarah, everything that you will say, niyar chalak, clear, clean page. Your words, it's like writing forever. And we had a problem in the past, again, that we didn't teach the Torah. We teach the midrashim, the interpretations. Why? Because we learned like that. We didn't learn the story. We learned the interpretations of the stories. I remember grandmother of my wife, Yerushalmit 7th generation. She said something about Avraham Avinu, and my wife argued with her. It wasn't like that. But it's written, she said. It's written. Where? In Senarena. No, it's written in Senarena. It's the book of the women to the Torah story. Senarena it's called. Sena Uena. Not Zion Bamelech Shlomo. It's written. Steht in Yiddish. It's steht meforish. Our responsibility to teach Torah is to teach the Torah Emet Natan B'tochim. Torah is Torah. Midrash is a different subject. And we need to learn Midrash. We need to learn Rashi. We need to learn Ramban. We need to learn a lot. But by mixing the messages, we miss everything. The kids in the end know nothing about everything. And our responsibility is to teach them. Start with the Torah. Take one small story each week. Every week from the parasha, small, you will argue with me and say, listen, in Sefer Dvarim, we have no stories. It's not true. You should build the story from nothing. Take one pasuk. One pasuk. Okay, for an example, okay, if Richard, we share together lunch this Shabbat, and Rabbi, who was part of the lunch, he stood up and said Dvar Torah. He used pasuk from the parasha, dealing with the word of V'haya im Shamoa, the second paragraph of Shema Yisrael, that dealing with how far you should go by learning Torah. With all your life, the whole business of going to the army, and then I took his Dvar Torah and I took it to the world of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his own explanation, but I took the real words of the Torah. I didn't take it to a different world. I took the one pasuk of the Torah, and I built my story from that. Sefer Dvarim, Parashat Ekev. Wow, boring, so many words. But there are so many messages inside that. Just use one, not more than that. What we say in Hebrew, tafasta, merubeh, not tafasta. Don't try to teach so much. Minimize the words of the Torah. One pasuk, 1 week, not more than that. One pasuk, but deeply, clear, with a message, with a story. Then with the other classes, one paragraph, not more. When I'm teaching Jeremiah to 11 class, I don't teach 52 prakim. He thinks that I teach all year about 10 prakim, not more. But I choose the prakim that bring the story. In the end, we don't need to, to feel that, okay, now they finish the Tanach. We didn't finish the Tanach. But we build the kesher between our students and their own story by the Tanach. I'm using the Tanach to return the people back to their own story. I can go further more and more about how to do that. I'm afraid I don't want to stand, like a lecture that I just say examples. I think that it's something that you can use in your classes. Start with kindergartens until the top of your students. Everyone can use it. It's just changing our mind about our duty as the teachers. Build a story. After that, after building the story, going further from the story to a small paragraph, if it's young girls, one pasuk, and then they will take whatever they want, but they have already the message from the prophet's names, prophet's words, from Hashem words, and we don't need to do more than that. What Chazal said to us, לא עליך המלאכה לגמור, ולא אתה בן חורין להיבטל ממנה. You are not the last teacher. Someone else will continue, but you have no freedom to say, I do nothing. We should do whatever we can do. I think that I have a few minutes to listen to, questions or arguments, or someone want to?
I just want to
Yes,
say
please.
something. I studied Yeshayahu. I won't tell you how many years ago, and I think the other people in the room who studied it with me, 50 years ago. Okay, and we had a teacher who came from Lithuania, Latvia. Okay, and he taught us until today. I know so much off by heart, and it comes to me, and through my life, that's been with me, and it's built bigger and bigger. And it wasn't something that we didn't learn, and it wasn't something that we didn't understand. It was magnificent. Okay, but teaching has changed. We don't have those teachers anymore.
I disagree completely.
You do.
I believe that the teachers are superb.
But how come today?
I believe that the students most.
Well,
I
how many
know that
teachers
today.
are teaching Yeshayahu?
I tell you what the difference is. What changed is that we have no koach to open book and to work hard. We are lazy. We have the internet. We are here now. We don't want to, give me the message, give me a story. To learn words that mean nothing for me as 30, I have a different channels. Okay, they play with me. They all the time they read me off. But if you give them a real story, you touch them by the Tanach, but no, keep yourself for 1 month, try to stay, moral Tanach without open Tanach. It's our problem, it's not their problem. Yetzer hara, we want to teach. We should control ourselves. I can tell you about Yeshayahu that without building the story, I don't want you to say that you understand nothing. You have beautiful words, beautiful messages, but not the whole story. And if you understand Yeshayahu to touch your life, to touch your future, I think that we need to do that. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
B'vakasha.
Just one clarification. So you're saying don't go into the Mepharshim, just stick with the main text.
No, I say go to Mepharshim, but in a different shiur.
Yeah, okay. But so are we meant to be taking, say, one nukuda from the story and teaching them a lesson that's relevant to their lives from that, or just the story? I'm just trying to clarify exactly what the goal is.
If you teach, you choose. Give me a example.
Can it come from Torah and Nevi'im?
As you wish.
So if, say, we're teaching about Abraham, can we
Okay.
teach about Hachnasat Orchim?
Avraham Achnasat Orchim, it's written, but you should be very careful how it's written. For example, okay?
Yeah.
When he stood in his time, first of all, just think about when we need to end the shiur. We have time?
5 minutes.
Okay, I will do it. I will try to do it fast. Try to think about yourself. I give you a homework to make a picture of Avraham. Seder? Where you will put him?
Outside the tent.
The Tanach didn't say even one time that he was in tent.
No.
Even one time. Always outside. The maximum petach haoel, the entrance of the maximum. Avraham is today we say hyperactive. No, lech lecha, lech lecha, lech lecha. He moved all the time. He moved. He never stopped, except one time. Except one time. You know when? In Sodom. The only time that the Torah said by Amod, Amakom Asher Amad, that he stood. But he didn't just stood. He argued. He refused to walk. When Hashem said to him, I'm going to destroy the Sodom, you shouldn't do that. Argue with Hashem. This is Avraham. I want to teach the kids about Avraham. A real Avraham. Of course, Achnasat Orchim. When he said to Hashem, Adonai, אם נא מצאתי חן בעיניך, אל תעבור מעל עבדיך. There is big מחלוקת between Rashi and Ramban to explain the words Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, Kodesh, Chol. Now, depend what age I'm playing with. But to explain this pasuk is beautiful if it's chutzpah, you know, we say to Hashem, please wait, I have a, you know, I have a different meeting now. Beautiful. What Ramban said about that, גדולה הכנסת אורחים מקבלת פני שכינה. This is my הבראה. It's not just interpretation. It's reading the Torah words. That's what I meant. Okay, now Midrash is beautiful itself, but keep Torah by, you know, the Torah is so beautiful, keep it. תודה רבה.